Hey, Mason here. Here with my video on upgrades for your Whirling / Twister Deadeye. This will be for pushing into high-end investment for your character. If you haven't seen this character before, I have a build guide in the description below that will cover the fundamentals of the character. I won't be going over that too much. I'll expect that all the information is there. And I'll be walking over item upgrades and efficiency in terms of cost and damage effectiveness. In the background footage, you'll see various of my endgame boss kills. So this is I think it's around 45 million HP total Iron Citadel, so it's been juiced really hard. There will also be some Deadly Mount bosses and some of the T3 boss kills. So Zesht, King of the Mist, and Olroth as well. The goals of this video is to build on the previous video, which was the guide without lineage support gems, and we'll be just talking about how to invest your currency further into this build to up your damage, mainly single target, which is the main struggle for Twister, in the most effective cost way. Okay, let's start with the upgrades. Okay, so your first upgrade should be the Sacred Flame Scepter from Arbiter. The reason why this scepter is better than the previous one that we were using is because it has a higher value for the gain % of damage as extra fire, but most importantly, it also has the mod that says enemies in your presence resist elemental damage based on their lowest resistance. We currently don't have direct information on the resistance of bosses in-game, however there has been POE2 data on this, and most bosses have 0 resistance in 1 resistance. For example, King of the Mist has 0 resistance in all 3 and then 50% Chaos Res. Zesht and Arbiter have 75% all res except Chaos Res where they have 0. And Olroth has 75%, I think it's cold res, and 0 in all the others. So basically this scepter should have the effect of the Invoker Ascendancy node that allows you to ignore resistances on crit because you're setting all resistances to 0 when they're in your presence, and because you're playing Deadeye, you're walking up to shotgun the projectiles into the boss, so you're getting close to blast them with your Twister and Barrage. Aside from the resistance effect that Sacred Flame provides, it also allows us to gain all 3 elements very easily without needing to deal with flat on rings. You ignite with Sacred Flame, you will chill with your Trail of Ice Beast, and then you'll shock with Charged Mark, which is on Sniper's Mark, on your cold shots. This allows you to gain maximum benefit from Yoke of Suffering, which results in a massive DPS increase. Not to mention, now we are anointing Stormbreaker on our Yoke of Suffering for another 20% increased damage for each elemental ailment on an enemy, and we're also taking Harness the Elements, which gives us 20% increased damage for each ailment on the enemy. This results in massive amounts of efficiency for stacking all 3 ailments, resulting in a massive DPS boost. Okay, so for your next upgrade, it will be Garrukant's Resolve. Unfortunately, this is a really strong damage link, and it's also quite expensive to reflect that. And the reason why is because 1, it allows you to take out pinpoint critical, so you remove the downside of pinpoint critical, which is 30% less crit damage. And you basically get the equivalent amount of crit from this, so you go from 50% crit to 75% crit. And then you also get the opportunity to double roll your crits with Bifurcate in terms of their crit damage dealt. So overall, it's just removing the downside of pinpoint critical, giving you the same amount of crit, and then giving you the advantage of doubling your damage with a chance to double your damage from Bifurcate. And just a reminder that a cheap upgrade is to get your Twister to level 20. You may have attribute requirements, so I've solved this by using a 2-socket gloves with plus 10 dexterity socketable. However, if you have attributes elsewhere, you won't need to do this. You could also get your Twister to level 21 using the new corruption for gems, however I have not done that yet. Once you have Garrukant's Resolve, your crit is capped at 50%, which means we can now drop that crit weakness Deadeye Ascendancy node, and I've decided to take point blank for 20% more damage in close range, and I'm walking up to the boss and shotgunning them with my Twister and Barrage casts anyways, so it results in around 20% more damage. Again, Twister's main struggle is boss DPS, so I've decided to go with this Ascendancy node to maximize that. And that should cover most of the primary damage increasing upgrades I've done, and now I'll talk a little bit about quality of life and defensive upgrades as well. The first one is regarding skill effect duration. You want your Twisters to be on screen for as long as possible because there is a timer that you need to wait out between seals, and so if the Twisters disappear when your seals are still charging, then you may not have Twisters on the screen leeching, which is a very strong defensive layer. So with that in mind, I've now invested into 3 Sapphire Jewels. I think they're around 2 Divines each, and each of these Sapphire Jewels have the relevant mods we want. First is skill effect duration. We have 3 sets of this. It adds up to around a little bit below 30%, which is pretty close to the amount of skill effect duration you would get by using prolonged duration support on your Twister links. This means that we don't have to sacrifice a support link, and we can use the support link for damage, while still gaining the effects of a longer Twister duration, which makes it safer for bosses because there's more Twisters on screen leeching at all time. Aside from this, Sapphire Jewels have very good defensive mods, so we've picked Maximum Energy Shield for all 3 Sapphires, This results in around 1000 energy shield gained. And for our last mod, we've picked stun threshold for 2 of them and ailment threshold for 1 of them. The reason why you want stun threshold is because you're getting closer to the boss to cast your twisters in their face, and occasionally they will melee attack you and stun you out of it if you don't have any stun threshold, since your life is pretty low and you have a lot of ES. So by investing our jewels into this stops us from getting stunned, allowing us to shotgun the boss easier without getting interrupted during the twister casting animation. The ailment threshold 1 is just something to add in at the end, just to make sure that it helps a little bit against bosses that have damage gained as extra cold to stop them from randomly freezing you or chilling you as much. And for the last mod on the jewels, just pick anything that's relevant. Following this, I've also upgraded my chest piece to a much higher ES roll, and there's also int on here because we need the attributes as well as a tiny bit of chaos rares here. And I've also upgraded my darkness enthroned belt to a 100% roll in order to get 1% attack speed as well as turn the 59 increased magnitude to 60% increased magnitude. You don't need this, it's not worth the money, that's why it's at the later end of the video. It's 10 divided to this, you don't need this. Alright, and time for me to cover the 2 weapons I've crafted. These are very expensive, in the 50 divine range to 100 divine range to craft depending on your luck. And that's why I put them at the end of the video. They don't give you that much damage or that much effect like on your character compared to the upgrades before. However, I've done these upgrades just to continue min-maxing my character. I'll first talk about the soaring spear. The one on the left, that is your whirling / attack speed spear. Okay, so let's start with the attack speed spear, the soaring spear I have. Looking up a spear with this much attack speed, which is the one I have personally, it is around 40 divines for this one here, and around 60 divines for Sky Sliver that's corrupted. The main thing with this soaring spear is it has no flat crit on it at all, and the reason why we care about crit is because we're using Whirling Slash to crit and pull off Sniper's Mark, which is applied by cold shots to give us frenzy charges generation on bosses. That's why we want some crit on our Whirling Slash. This spear would give you around 20% crit. The spear I have gives me around 30% crit. It makes it a little bit more consistent by a tiny amount. Okay, so let's talk about how to craft this spear. The only thing we care about on the spear is literally attack speed and crit. We don't care about anything else. We don't want melee skill gems because that makes our mana cost higher. So with that in mind, we're going to look at the suffixes. We're going to look at trying to have a certain item level to remove some of these mods from this pool to give us a high chance of hitting tier 1 attack speed or tier 1 crit. Tier 1 attack speed is the main one though. So tier 1 attack speed has a maximum level of 77. That's why I've put a 77 here. That's the minimum level of spears that we want because we want tier 1 attack speed. But if you look at here, looks like 81 and 78 are the 2 mods, the 2 item levels required for tier 1 of melee skill levels or Fizz Leech Fizz mana. And so we want to remove those. With that in mind, we're going to look for probably level 80. If you see, I look at level 80. If we just look at the mod number here, so in this case, tier 1 attack speed has a weighting of 100 here. It says 1.1%, so 1% 005. If you put an 80 here, we look at it again, you can see that it's gone to a 1.2%, so it went up a tiny bit. If you look at 78, which is going up again even more, oh, sorry, not 78, 77, it will actually go up a little bit more to 1.4%. But level 77 exactly for conceptual base is pretty rare, so that's why I'm going with level 80 here. The way you search this up in the trade site is very easy. Item level 80, 77 to 80 with 2 augmentable sockets. You also want non-corrupted, and you want it to be magic because you want to craft on this. Right now, there's only one on the market, so that's one with attack speed. That's why I'm telling you to craft this yourself. That's 25 divines. But if you take this off, they're like 50x for a base. On Craft of Exile, we can have a look at the chance to actually hit. So if I go Spear, I say my item level is 77. Let's just say 78. And then I'm going to click on attack speed. So tier 1 attack speed over here. Where is it? Right here. Tier 1 attack speed. We're going to look at the chance of augmenting this item onto a suffix with a greater aug. It's around 170 augs to hit this, which is 178 annuls, potentially a little bit more. So you want to judge the price of this. Currently, it's, I think, 1 divine to 9 annuls, which would actually make this base here, the one that I showed you earlier with the tier 1 attack speed on it already, this base here would actually be better to just buy directly instead of crafting this base yourself. The entire idea around this is your augment spamming. So you're either spamming with greater augment or perfect augment. Probably perfect because annuls are very expensive. This should cost you 10 divine on average to hit because 10 divine in annuls, right? So approximately 10 divine in average to hit tier 1 attack speed by spamming annul, perfect augment until you get it. So in this case, this one would actually not be as good. Or you could just buy this and skip the hassle of actually rolling for attack speed on the spear yourself. So once you have attack speed, I'm just going to pull up Craft of Exile now and then go into the emulator. I'll just show you what this looks like in a simulation. So again, we're looking for Soaring Spear. Let me just try and find it. And the only reason why we care about Soaring Spear is because it has a very high attack speed value. I don't actually know if Craft of Exile has Soaring Spear. I don't see it here. Oh, right here, sorry. Just being blind. And we want an item level of, let's just say 78. Quality doesn't matter. Sockets, we would say 2, but you can't get 2 on here. So just keep this in mind, this will have 2 sockets. So the first thing we're doing is we're perfect transmuting, so you obviously want to get this to blue, and then you're going to aug with probably a perfect or a greater. Probably perfect is cheaper because the nulls are very expensive. So you see that this one has a suffix. Just going to double a null. We null the suffix off, we go again. We null again. We still have a suffix, we need to remove that because attack speed is the suffix. You just keep doing this until you hit attack speed. So this one's a prefix, so we can go again. Basically, you're just looking for a suffix that is attack speed. So you just keep repeating this process. It may take you a while. Eventually, let's just say you hit the tier 1 attack speed on the suffix. So right here, I'm just going to click that and just add that to my item like this. So now we have tier 1 attack speed. Next thing you do is you divine it to max value. This one's already max value, so divine until 28. Divine until 28. And then you'll use an essence, a greater essence of the one that gives crit chance, Seeking. This will then upgrade your item to have crit chance. Now, what you would do is you will corrupt it with an omen to hit 3 socket. That's basically it. It's a very straightforward craft, but you may need to do it a few times because the corruption is 1 and 3 or something. You use a corruption omen, which I don't think they have here. I don't see any. And you just hit it with a Vow Orb until you get an extra socket like that. Now, you'll be crafting this on an exceptional base, so it'll be 2 sockets to 3 socket. In my case, I hit 2 socket. That's basically how you craft this spear. Now what you would do is you'll put in the soul calls that give attack speed, which I don't remember the name of, but let's see if I can find them here. This one here, you put into soul calls, bam bam, and your attack speed should be high. If you have 3 sockets, you get to the exact same spear that I have as well, assuming you have 28% here on the attack speed roll. That's basically how you craft this spear. Very straightforward. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the second spear. Okay, so I'll be going over now your main damage spear that will be on your twister weapon set. We want a flying spear with increased projectile speed that makes the twisters go faster. We also want the soul call that gives us frenzy charge, like an additional frenzy charge, as well as T1 fizz, essenced fizz damage, damage gained is extra fizz, onslaught on kill, attack skills, and high crit chance. On the market currently, this spear is probably approximately 100 divine, and it probably cost me around that much to craft it, mainly because getting crit chance is very, very expensive because of Omen of Light. So, for example, this one is 80 divine, but this one has accuracy instead of the damage gained is extra fizz. This one here is 100 divine, it has damage gained is extra lightning. This one here has damage gained is extra fizz, but it has a less crit chance than mine. So approximately 100 divine if you just bought this immediately. However, I'll show you how to craft this yourself, and you can try and gamble your luck. The main thing that makes this expensive is hitting the crit chance roll here, because every single time you attempt this, you get 6 options. So you have Desecrate 3 options, and then Abyss will reroll 3 more options, and then you have the Omen of Light it, which is 9 divine. So basically every attempt on this is 9 divine, and that's why this spear is expensive. The rest of the spear is not that expensive comparison to getting this crit chance on it. So how do you craft this spear? Let's first start with Craft of Exile here. So I'm going to hop into one-handed weapons again, hop into spears, and we're going to pick a flying spear. Again, flying spear is best in slot because attack the projectile speed of the spear. In terms of item level, you want it to be item level 82 because you need to have tier 1 increased fizz, and the quality is whatever, right? So first to start off, you'll be buying a base that is blue with first increased fizz. So over here, we're going to look at increased fizz damage, this one here, and any suffix. We don't care about the suffix. So I'm just going to click a random suffix, right? Tier 8 attack speed, doesn't matter. How much do these spears cost on trade? Let's take a look quickly. So we're going to look at flying spear here. We're going to look at magic. We're going to look at physical damage. And we're going to look at probably I think it's like 165 or something is the tier 1 roll. So this one here is tier 2, so 169. So 170 plus. This will cost you approximately 5 divines or 10 divines for a base to start with. Around 10 divines for a base. This one is like underpriced. It's going to get stolen soon. Okay, and then make sure your item level, it should be 82 because only 82 item level can roll this particular Fizz mod. Alright, now that we have our base here, you'll start with basically crafting how you craft every single physical damage weapon. Essence of Vibration for Flat Fizz. Then we have Flat Fizz on it. And then, because the base is so expensive, we'll be using a Dextral Crystallization Omen to guarantee that the essence removes the suffix, in combination with an Essence of Vibration, a perfect one, to gain the damage as extra physical damage. You have the option of picking lightning damage, cold damage, or fire damage. However, I've picked physical damage because we're getting our elements already from other sources, and so physical damage makes it so that we have extra physical damage, which gives us more leech because our leech is based on our physical damage. So we don't really need the other elements to apply ailments since we already get them. So now that we have this done, our prefixes are finished for the spear. Now is the expensive part where you need to do your suffixes. So the first thing you'll do is you'll just triple Exalt Slam. Normally I use Greater and I use the essence that doubles the slam, which is the Exaltation one, which I can't find in here. But just the idea is just slam some lines on to see what you get. Right? Doesn't matter what you get. Now, what you would do is you will desecrate a suffix. So sorry, you will slam 2 lines on. Let me just correct that. You slam 2 lines on, and then you'll desecrate with a Preserved Jawbone for the extra suffix now. So now we have a suffix now. This saves us from having to use the suffix Abyss Omen. Now, what you'll do is you'll spam Perfect Essence of Haste and Battle. First, you'll start with Haste, because Haste is the cheapest to remove, like it's the cheapest in terms of cost. So bam, we hit Haste here, and then you'll be using a Perfect Essence of Battle. This is unupdated, this should be +3, and you'll be trying to hit the last suffix, 1 and 3. Did we miss? We missed. We hit our haste, right? Now you repeat this process. So we hit this. Let's see if we hit again, 1 and 3. We missed. We hit our desecration. Now what you would need to do is you would need to use a desecration omen, the one for suffixes. So where is it? This one here, Dextral Necromancy, in combination with a Preserved Jawbone to remove a suffix and add a desecration line. And then you'll repeat this process again. So again, we'll be spamming haste on it. We have haste already, so we'll be putting a battle on it to try and hit this reduced attribute requirement. And we hit it. So now your suffixes are complete, and now you need to spam rerolls to get crit chance, which is the most expensive part of this setup. So right now we've got tier 1 Fizz, tier 3 Fizz damage from the Essence, this one here from the Perfect Essence, this one here from Haste, this one here from Battle, and we're going to be unveiling for crit chance. So how long does this take? It's pretty low chance, to be honest with you. It took me, I think, around 10 Omen of Lights, which is around 100 Divine to hit this. So you could just buy the one from the market. It might be cheaper depending on your luck, but that's basically how I did it. So what happens is, for example, I'll just start from just showing you an example, right? So we have a Jawbone here. We're going to reveal. We didn't get what we get. You're going to reroll with the Abyssal Omen, and then you pick whatever line. Doesn't matter, right? So I'm going to pick like this line here. Now, you're going to use the Omen of Light in combination with an Annul to remove this line. And then you're going to repeat the process. You're going to go back to here to Jawbone, click the Jawbone on, use the Abyssal Echoes to reroll this, reroll again. If you hit crit, great. If you don't, repeat the process. Omen of Light, Annul. And then repeat the process again, Jawbone. You keep doing this until you hit crit chance. Generally, I'll just settle on any source of crit chance, and obviously just pray you get a high amount of crit chance, right? But it's just luck, and you may be better off just buying the spear since it's only 100 divines, and each attempt of re-rolling is 10 divine, as well as the omen itself. So the omen is 10 divine and the base is 10 divine, right? So you may just be better off buying this off the market to stop you from having to re-roll this yourself. In that case, this deal over here that I was showing earlier, which I've lost here, was a pretty good deal. But yeah, this is pretty standard where you craft all physical weapons, and it's not anything different here either. Cool. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up for the video. That should cover all the primary upgrades I've done to this point with all the divines I had saved up. And that should be able to get your build into a very strong state for all content in the game, as well as being very comfortable to play in general. I will try and make another update video if there are significant changes before the private league that's next week, the second wind one. Otherwise, once that one comes along, I'll be playing this build again in second league, in the second wind league, and trying to experience the low level content because I never played this build from scratch. I actually played this build from level 90 by respecking my Pathfinder. That's what I'll be doing next. But yeah, if you like the content, like and subscribe. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. And the guide for the actual build itself is in the description, so check that out if you need more information on the setup. Cool, I'm out.